You know, there are days when you just don't feel like doing anything. The bed is calling. The phone is calling. Distractions are calling, but there's a part of you that knows if you don't push, if you don't take action, you're giving up on your dreams. Successful people, they don't wait for motivation. They don't wait for the perfect moment. They force themselves to work, even when they don't want to. And here's the secret. It's not about grit alone. It's about mastering your mind, your emotions, and your habits. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how high achievers turn resistance into unstoppable momentum, and how you can start doing the same thing in your life right now. Successful people don't rely on fleeting motivation or random bursts of energy. What truly drives them, even on days when they feel like giving up, is a deep connection to their why. Your why is the compelling reason behind everything you do. It's the reason you're willing to push past discomfort, to endure the grind, and to keep moving forward when the world seems heavy. Without a strong why, work feels like a chore, and resistance becomes almost impossible to overcome. Think about it. The human mind is wired to avoid pain and seek pleasure. When you don't feel like working, your brain is sending a very clear message. Stay comfortable, avoid stress, relax. But your why overrides this instinct. When your purpose is vivid and emotionally charged, it acts like a fuel that can ignite your energy even when motivation is low. Successful people spend time clarifying their purpose, connecting their daily actions to something larger than themselves. They visualize the impact their efforts will have on their lives, their families, and their communities. That vision creates a magnetic pull that makes the work unavoidable. It's not just about lofty dreams or vague goals. It's about internalizing a reason so powerful that it feels unbearable to stop. Some people do this through family, some through legacy, and some through the pursuit of mastery in their craft. When they wake up in the morning, they don't think about whether they feel like working. They think about the life they are creating, the people they are impacting, and the legacy they are building. That thought alone is enough to silence excuses. Another key part of leveraging your why is emotional intensity. Purpose becomes a force multiplier when it's tied to emotion. Successful people don't just intellectually understand why they are doing something, they feel it in their chest. The stronger the emotional connection, the stronger the ability to overcome laziness, fatigue, or distraction. Even small actions feel significant when they are connected to a greater purpose. Writing down your why, visualizing it, or reminding yourself daily of the consequences of inaction, are all tools that top performers use to keep themselves moving, regardless of how they feel in the moment. Finally, leveraging your why turns work from a burden into a calling. It transforms the grind into a series of steps toward fulfillment. You stop thinking about the difficulty of the task and start thinking about the outcome, the transformation, and the impact. This mindset creates an unshakable discipline, a discipline not born from force, but from alignment. When your work is tied to your purpose, resistance becomes temporary, and the habit of action becomes unstoppable. The truth is, anyone can find their why, but few are willing to dig deep enough to feel it with intensity. The ones who do are the ones who show up day after day, even when they don't feel like it. That is the secret that separates successful people from everyone else. They let their purpose be louder than their excuses, and that, my friend, is how greatness is built. Successful people understand that their emotional state determines their actions far more than sheer willpower ever could. You can have the clearest goals, the biggest dreams, and the strongest why. But if your emotional state is low, lethargic, or distracted, you won't take consistent action. That's why mastering your emotions is not a luxury. It's a necessity. It's the difference between pushing through resistance and letting it control you. Every human experiences resistance. Some days you feel tired, uninspired, or overwhelmed. You wake up with intentions to work, but quickly find yourself scrolling, procrastinating, or finding excuses. The truth is, your mind is wired to avoid discomfort and protect you from perceived threats. And work can sometimes feel like a threat. But the most successful people know how to flip that script. They don't let resistance dictate their action. They transform it into fuel. The first step in mastering your emotional state is awareness. You must recognize the emotions running through you and understand their effect on your behavior. Are you feeling fear, doubt, or frustration? That's normal, but acknowledging it prevents it from silently sabotaging your efforts. Once you're aware, you can use rituals and techniques to shift your state. Movement is one of the most powerful tools. Physical activity triggers energy, clarity, and motivation. Even a 5-minute walk, a few jumping jacks, or a quick burst of stretching can change your physiology and wake up your mind. Another powerful method is focus. Where attention goes, energy flows. Successful people deliberately direct their attention to empowering thoughts, visions of success, and reminders of their purpose. They create an emotional anchor, a feeling of excitement, passion, or determination that they can tap into on demand. This is not about suppressing negative emotions. It's about choosing which emotions will drive your behavior. When you consciously step into a state of energy, confidence, and clarity, resistance begins to shrink. Language also shapes emotion. The words you use internally, your self-talk, affect your energy level. Saying, I have to work, creates a sense of obligation, which feels heavy. But reframing it as I get to create, I get to move toward my dreams, shifts your emotional state from burden to empowerment. Successful people know the power of this subtle shift and use it consistently to propel themselves forward. Finally, mastering your emotional state is about ritual and consistency. High achievers don't wait for the perfect feeling, they create it. They have morning routines, visualization practices, breathing exercises, and other strategies that reliably put them in a peak state. This allows them to work even when they don't feel like it, because their emotional system is optimized to take action. Turning resistance into energy is not a one-time trick, it's a lifelong skill. It's about understanding that emotion is the engine of action, and by consciously managing it, you can consistently show up, execute, and achieve even on days when your motivation is low. When you master your emotional state, you no longer fight against yourself, you harness the very energy that once held you back, transforming it into unstoppable momentum. One of the biggest reasons people avoid work, even when they know it's important, is overwhelm. When a task feels too big, too complex, or too daunting, the brain reacts by freezing, procrastinating, or seeking distraction. Successful people understand this instinct, and they have a simple but incredibly powerful strategy to overcome it. They break massive tasks into micro action. This approach makes progress inevitable even on days when motivation is low. Micro actions are small, manageable steps that feel so easy you can't say no to them. Instead of staring at an enormous project and feeling paralyzed, successful people focus on what they can do right now. Immediately, they ask themselves, what's the next right step? Or what's the tiniest action that moves me forward? By focusing only on that next step, they eliminate overwhelm and replace it with momentum. Momentum, once started, builds naturally, and small wins accumulate into significant results over time. Think about it like climbing a mountain. If you look only at the peak, you may feel defeated before you even start. But if you focus on placing one foot in front of the other, step by step, the climb becomes achievable. The same principle applies to work, projects, or personal growth. By chunking tasks into micro actions, successful people convert anxiety into clarity and uncertainty into action. Every small step creates a sense of accomplishment, and that feeling propels them forward. Another critical aspect of this strategy is the elimination of perfectionism. When you break work into micro actions, you no longer feel pressured to deliver a perfect final product immediately. Instead, the focus shifts to progress. Successful people know that action, even imperfect action, is more powerful than waiting for motivation or inspiration. Each micro-action is a building block, and the accumulation of small effort produces results far faster than sporadic bursts of energy ever could. Micro-actions also create a psychological edge. When you start small, your brain experiences success repeatedly, triggering dopamine and reinforcing positive behavior. This creates a feedback loop. Action generates accomplishment. Accomplishment generates motivation, and motivation drives further action. This is why high achievers often appear unstoppable. They have mastered the art of taking small, consistent steps, even on days when they feel resistance or fatigue. Finally, chunking work down is not just a productivity hack. It's a mindset shift. It trains your mind to focus on what you can control rather than what feels impossible. It teaches patience, discipline, and the power of incremental progress. Over time, micro-actions compound, and what once felt overwhelming becomes manageable, achievable, and even enjoyable. By breaking work into micro-actions, successful people sidestep procrastination, conquer overwhelm, and create unstoppable momentum. They don't wait for motivation or inspiration. They create a system where action is inevitable and results follow naturally. The lesson is simple but transformative. When the work feels too big, shrink it. Take one small step. then another. Momentum will carry you further than you ever imagined, and before you know it, the mountain that once seemed impossible has been climbed. Successful people don't leave their progress to chance, inspiration, or fleeting motivation. They operate by creating non-negotiable rules for themselves, standards, and commitments that are unwavering no matter how they feel in the moment. A rule of commitment is a personal contract, a promise to yourself that your work and your goals are not optional. This principle is what allows them to show up consistently, even on days when resistance is screaming louder than desire. The first step in establishing a rule of commitment is clarity. You must define what is non-negotiable in your life. It could be dedicating a certain number of hours to work, completing a specific number of tasks each day, or following a morning ritual that primes your energy. Whatever it is, the key is precision and specificity. Vague goals like I'll work harder, easily ignored, but specific rules like I will write 500 words before breakfast every day create a clear line that can't be crossed. This clarity removes ambiguity, which is often the breeding ground for excuses and procrastination. Next comes accountability. Successful people recognize that rules are only powerful when they are enforced. They build accountability systems around their commitments, whether through public declarations, accountability partners, or personal tracking systems. By making their commitment visible, they create external reinforcement that complements their internal discipline. This combination makes it extremely difficult to break the rule, even when the temptation to procrastinate is strong. Another critical aspect of a rule of commitment is understanding the cost of breaking it. Top performers don't just focus on the short-term comfort of avoiding work. They constantly remind themselves of the long-term consequences of inaction. Every day they skip a commitment is a day further from their goals. By keeping the cost of failure visible, they make adherence to their rule emotionally compelling. The discomfort of breaking the commitment becomes greater than the temporary relief of avoiding the task. Rules of commitment also rewire the mind to operate in a state of certainty and discipline. Instead of questioning whether they feel like it or have motivation, they remove the decision entirely. The choice to act becomes automatic, creating momentum that compounds over time. This is why high achievers are able to sustain extraordinary levels of productivity and consistency. They don't rely on fluctuating feelings. They rely on systems, standards, and non-negotiable rules. Finally, a rule of commitment instills pride, self-respect, and confidence. Every time you honor your word, even when it's hard, you reinforce your identity as someone who is reliable, disciplined, and capable. This self-perception becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, propelling you toward even greater achievements. It's not about being perfect. It's about being relentless, consistent, and unwavering in your pursuit of excellence. Creating and following a rule of commitment transforms work from a choice into a responsibility. It removes the endless debate of motivation versus resistance. It creates clarity, enforces accountability, and builds momentum. When you adopt this mindset, you become unstoppable, showing up day after day regardless of feelings, circumstances, or excuses. Your rules define you, and by honoring them, you force yourself to work, even when you don't want to. Successful people understand a simple but powerful principle: the human brain responds to reward. Motivation alone is unreliable. Some days it's high, some days it's almost non-existent. But reward, when applied strategically, creates momentum and reinforces action, even when the work feels difficult, tedious, or uncomfortable. Positive reinforcement is a psychological lever that can transform resistance into progress, making even the toughest tasks feel achievable. The first step in using rewards strategically is understanding that rewards don't have to be extravagant or external. They are most effective when tied directly to effort, not just outcomes. For example, completing a challenging task, sticking to a daily routine, or showing up consistently deserves acknowledgement. Successful people celebrate these micro victories because recognition fuels momentum. By associating effort with pleasure, they create a feedback loop. Action feels good. Action becomes habitual, and productivity increases naturally. Another important element is immediacy. The brain responds more strongly to rewards that are close in time to the action. Waiting until the end of a long project to celebrate can be demotivating because the brain struggles to link effort with satisfaction. High achievers solve this by breaking work into smaller segments and attaching smaller rewards to each completed step. It could be as simple as a 5-minute walk after finishing a section of work, a healthy treat, or a brief moment to reflect on progress. These small, immediate reinforcements help maintain energy, focus, and momentum. Strategic reward also involves personalization. Not every reward works for everyone. Successful people know themselves, they understand what truly motivates them. Some respond to experiences, some to tangible items, some to social recognition. By choosing rewards that are meaningful, they ensure the reinforcement is emotionally powerful and effective. The stronger the connection between effort and reward, the more likely the behavior is to repeat, turning discipline into a habit rather than a struggle. Another key principle is balance. Rewards are not meant to become distractions or excuses. They are tools to reinforce the behavior you want to cultivate. Successful people use them intentionally, not impulsively. They understand that overindulgence can weaken discipline, so they calibrate rewards to complement their effort. A strategic reward system strengthens willpower rather than replacing it. Finally, rewarding yourself strategically nurtures a mindset of abundance and positivity. By acknowledging and celebrating progress, no matter how small, you shift your focus from struggle to achievement. You begin to associate work with growth and accomplishment rather than pain and resistance. Over time, this mental pattern trains the brain to anticipate satisfaction from effort, making it easier to show up consistently, even when you don't feel like it. The truth is, humans are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. Successful people don't fight this, they harness it. They create systems where effort leads to reward, and reward fuels more effort. By strategically reinforcing hard work, they convert resistance into energy, discipline into habit, and action into results. When you implement this principle in your own life, even the toughest, most challenging work becomes not just doable, but rewarding, and that is how unstoppable momentum is built. Here's the truth. Success isn't about waiting for motivation to strike. It's not about feeling like it or hoping the circumstances are perfect. Success is forged in the moments when you push forward anyway, when you leverage your purpose, master your emotions, break work into small steps, commit without compromise, and reward yourself strategically. That's how momentum is created. That's how ordinary people transform into unstoppable achievers. Every day you have a choice. You can let resistance win, or you can harness it as fuel. You can let excuses dictate your results, or you can set rules, take action, and create a life of fulfillment and impact. The secret is simple yet powerful: mastery of your mind, your habits, and your actions. Start today. Show up when it's hard. Push through when you don't feel like it. Because every step you take, every action you complete, every rule you honor compounds into a life you once only dreamed of. Remember, greatness isn't given, it's built. And the only way to build it is to work, even when you don't want to. Force yourself, push yourself, and let your purpose guide you. When you do, there's nothing in this world that can stop you.